You're listening to In Our Headphones.
Your chance to discover the songs KEXP DJs don't want you to miss. I'm Janice Headley.
And I'm Isabel Kelly. And this is your never-ending source for new music discovery from listener-powered KEXP. Hey, it's Isabel, and today I'm joined by two wonderful DJs and people, Kevin Sur and Tory J. They are the hosts of KEXP's global indigenous music show called Sounds of Survivance. Kevin and Tory, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So you've both been guests on In Our Headphones before, but today you're here together to amplify our celebration of Indigenous Peoples Day, a holiday that happens here in the U.S. on the second Monday of October. So we're going to talk about some new music from Indigenous artists who are pushing the boundaries of sound. But first, speaking of sound, I want to talk about your show briefly, because even though we're releasing this episode on a holiday that happens once a year, your show celebrates Indigenous music and voices every week. And you decided to call your show Sounds of Survivance. Can you talk about where that name comes from?
Yeah, absolutely. Survivance is a theory in Indigenous studies that was developed by Anishinaabe theorist Gerald Visner. And it's been interpreted by other scholars in the field as thinking through the intersection of survival and resistance. And so Visner himself had this way of understanding Indian life that he wanted to very intentionally move away from narratives of tragedy and victimry. And so thinking about the ways that we exist under oppressive structures of settler colonialism and what we do to adapt to those systems in ways that are expressions of a carrying forward of our indigeneity, no matter the media. And so that was his response, was specifically to literature and depictions of Native people in literature as tragic victims. And so it's a repudiation of that. Visner was talking specifically about writing and rhetoric, but it has been equally applied to things like sound and media. And so I like to think of survivance orality, the ways that we conceptualize sound as Indigenous peoples, the way that we use sound and have been using sound for thousands of years, as explicating and developing that idea of moving away from victim and tragedy narratives.
Thank you, Tory. Listeners can tune in to Sounds of Survivance every Monday from 3 to 5 a.m. Pacific time, or they can catch up with your previous shows on the archive at kexp.org or the KEXP app. And I believe there's a new URL for your show where listeners will also be able to find other Indigenous Peoples Day related content on the website.
Yes, you can go to kexp.org/indigenous. So we're very easy to find.
All right, should we get into some new music?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. I know you each brought two new songs, and then you're going to talk about a classic soul artist. But Kevin, why don't you share your new music first?
Yes. The first new track I would love to talk about, it's from the band Ghostkeeper, and it's from one of my favorite albums of the year. Like, I'm fairly certain this is going to be on my top 10 list, but it's called Chipayak Joy. And Ghostkeeper is a duo. It's Shane Ghostkeeper, who's a Polaris Prize award-winning songwriter, and his partner Sarah Houle, who's kind of a percussionist, electronics manipulator. And the album itself, it's full of these just beautiful meditations, and then that are like kind of broken up by these really beautiful earworms of songs. And so the song that I chose, what song did I choose? Storm Chaser.
My storm chaser, we got that eternal blessing, so that if all the earth stops spinning, oh baby, we got this moment for all eternity. Just maybe, we got this moment for all eternity.
So Storm Chaser, the quote from the band that I read was, it's an homage to the moment when these two lovers chose to accept a mutual invitation to propel themselves into the iconic, formidable, and epic storm that arises when one decides to battle their ego. The duo explains a sincere and fierce commitment to romance and progressive individualism so as to gift each other true love. And it is absolutely a love song. It's beautiful and moving, and it's one of my favorite of the year.
Yeah, this album really gripped me, and learning that the album title, Chipayak Joy, comes from a Cree term that translates as the ghosts are dancing, which is often used to describe the Northern Lights. I think knowing that enhances the experience, too, of listening to their music and hearing the way that their voices swirl around each other. And this song in particular, especially Storm Chaser, it really just makes you feel like you're entering the eye of the storm. All right, Kevin, can you share another song with us?
Absolutely. One of my favorite bands, it's actually a collaborative band. They're called Ombiigizi. They're an Anishinaabe group that is formed with Daniel Monkman, who's most known as the artist that is the band Zoon, Z-O-O-N, a moccasin gaze, amazing project. So it's a combination between Zoon and this really amazing band called Status Non-Status. And so it's kind of their two forces combined to form this amazing group that if you're a fan of, say, Dinosaur Jr., you'd really love them. And I think this one song, Connecting, is just a really catchy indie rock song. The song is kind of broken up with this very catchy A section and then this B section that's this simple, repetitive, kind of disorienting bridge that kind of feeds into that, like just having internal conflict. And it just kind of goes on in this growing, maddening way and then returns back to kind of the main chorus and theme of the song. And so I just love the structure. It's a earworm. And it's one of the many singles that they're releasing for this upcoming record that I think comes out next month.
Yeah, that B section of the song is particularly emotional, too, with the build that starts with the lyrics, "Here I am, yes I can. When I can, yes I can." It really hits you as a listener.
Exactly. It's like banging your head against the wall. I don't know.
It totally gives me like Serge Tankian vibes, like System of a Down kind of style.
Yeah, I'd also say Pixies. Like if you like the Pixies, you'd really love this band.
So this new record is called Shame, and it's out November 1st on Arts and Crafts Records. All right, Tory, let's move on to your song choices. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, the first song that I want to share is In My Way by Liv Rion. It's a single that came out this year.
Oh, there's a long road. I lose faith. Oh, there's a long road, yeah. I feel afraid. So I go away.
Liv Rion is a fellow Quinault tribal member. She and I met at the Quinault General Council meeting, and I was joking with her because she's taking over my Indigenous Peoples Day episode of Sounds of Survivance. I was joking with her that I told the story on air many a time of how we met at the Quinault General Council meeting. And it's always an excuse for me to say, aside from making beautiful music, Indigenous peoples are sovereign nations. And so me and Liv were there to vote and to hear important tribal business and stuff like that. And it was pretty like full circle because I just started working at KEXP and I played her on my show. So I got to tell her that in person. And so the takeover for Sounds of Survivance that she did is really full circle because it's the way that we met in a tribal governance context, but we're both so passionate about music and art making, and that's like how we want to reach people, that we created this episode of Sounds of Survivance where it's all her. Like, she's brought a bunch of songs that play through her influences, and they're things that you can hear in her music, including In My Way. This is very, like, she describes it as like easy listening, tons of R&B influence, very recognizable guitar tone from Johnny, her producer. And, you know, she told me that he's super influenced by Khruangbin and Khruangbin's specific guitar tone. And I think those influences all shine through. And she also has a mind for psychology. And so one thing that she's passionate about is using music to reach through like the inner depths of the things she's thinking through and going through that vulnerability and communicating that through music and hopefully empathically sort of reaching other Native people. And that's something that we talked about because she was a fan of the idea of survivance, you know, just like thinking through how music can communicate the very like intimate and emotional parts of our experience as Indigenous peoples.
On a journey where I don't feel worthy, vision blurs so concerning. Is it even worth it? I can't find a reason to keep going. On this long road, I feel ashamed, and I'm to blame. I get in my way, my way, my way, my way, my way, my way. Oh, I get in my way, my way, my way, my way, my way.
Remember, you can always listen to all of these songs in full by following along with the playlists that we keep updated with new music on both Spotify and YouTube. You can find links to those in the show notes, or you can go to kexp.org/podcasts and click on the In Our Headphones podcast page, and you'll find links there. All right, Tory, let's hear your next song. What did you bring to share?
Yes, I want to share with you Purity by Indian Giver from their album Dark Legacy 3.
A political failure, policy decision without measure, no harmony, generational torment, always with the seeds of the heaven and hell-bent. Purity, the spiritual meltdown, living in the arms of nature, well, it's drowning in terror, is what my people say, searching for the light on the darkest days.
It's a hardcore group from Toronto. They're an anonymous band. And so they have their tribal affiliation like listed, but they don't have like their names listed. And Dark Legacy 3 is just this super groovy, hardcore, lots of punk elements album that came out in July, and I've just been obsessed with it like ever since, because it fills this niche in the Indigenous music space that, of course, like I love to amplify as a fan of metal music and a fan of the res metal scene. I've even talked about that in Our Headphones, but metal is such a diverse genre. Like, it's not all metal music sounds the same, and hardcore has its own certain flair when it comes to groove and when it comes to lyrical content and structure and things like that. And Indian Giver just does something different, you know, like for me, in my ears, they do something that I can really connect with. And it reminds me of like one of my favorite hardcore bands out of the UK. They're called Loathe. And just to hear that sort of sonic, cacophonous, sort of groovy brilliance come through in their music is a really special thing. And I just really love what they're doing, especially too because it's so fitting for the lyrical content, right? Like I've never really heard, like, in 3 words in the breakdown of this song, they simply just say, "We need action," you know. And their whole sort of ethic as a band is reconciliation, you know, reconciliation through action and thinking through and pushing back against settler colonial structures. And so it's just to see that and hear it in hardcore music is one of my favorite things, you know.
I knew we could count on something hardcore from you, Tory. And as I was first listening to this song, I just felt it as this very valid expression of anger from this world of binaries imposed on Native communities by settlers. But then as the song progresses, there's also this sort of call to action, and there's like a tempo shift, and the lyrics, like you said, are about reconciliation. We need action. We need to see you in the street. And that becomes actually really invigorating, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has the, you know, rap music in punk and metal has definitely happened quite a lot in music history. But I wanted to give a special shout out to Wiidaaseh, who's the rapper who has a verse in this song. He's a pretty new artist to me. I actually found out about him through this song, but it's really cool to see, especially like Native metal musicians, I feel like have a really indiscriminate perspective on genre collaborations. And so to see something like that is really cool.
Well, let's listen to a little more of Indian Giver with Purity featuring Wiidaaseh.
This is the end of polite reconciliation. We need action. No more bro clutching. Reconciliation. We need action. This is real native hardcore. We want to see you in the street. This is the real thing. I want you to feel what we fucking felt. And under the bounce and drinking it out. Pain in the blood of the pain in the land and the blood on our hand. Blood of a man. Look at the signs. Locusts in there. See on the rise. You be drowning in pain. Pain that you dish. The pain in the water. You making us piss. The water will let cause we dodging the bullet. I want you to suffer. Suffer like you have been taken away from your mother.
All right, so for our last song of the day with Tory and Kevin, we are talking about an older release from a band that you might recognize. Kevin, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so when Tory and I started KEXP, kind of the funny thing is that a lot of the music that we play on Sound Survivance, a lot of indigenous music, isn't in KEXP's systems. So we're having to play from our own hard drives and connect our computers up to KEXP in order to hit play and for the sound to happen. And so our first shows, both Tory and I had the same experience where we went to hit play on our first song and nothing happened. And there was just something technically off about our settings and what we did. So for both Tory and my sake, for our first different weeks, the one band that we knew would be in KEXP's hard drives was Redbone. You know, Redbone is popularized. I mean, most people know Redbone is the band that plays Come and Get Your Love, which kind of had a resurgence with Guardians of the Galaxy coming out and that being the opening track. Yeah, so we developed a thing called Panic Redbone, where like if we hit play and something doesn't work live on air, we just we have Redbone ready to go and we hit play on that. And so it kind of became this emergency song or emergency band that we'd always have at the ready if for some reason at 3 a.m. we hit play and something doesn't work. But yeah, like Redbone has like saved our butts, but it's also a foundational band for Native music. So it makes a lot of sense that, you know, in times of trouble and need, Redbone is like our safe place.
Yeah, so Redbone was the first Native American band to reach the top 5 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100.
Yeah.
But I know that we're not talking about Come and Get Your Love today. We're talking about a different song. Tory, do you want to share what that song is?
Yeah, I want to talk about the song Alcatraz.
Alcatraz, 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 Alcatraz. Few have seen your beauty like the Indian has.
It's kind of remarkable how many people just kind of like find out about Redbone and they're like, oh, they were Native. But then you go to communities like ours, there's a lore story that Redbone had played in Tohola, where I grew up one time, a long time ago. And I think my mom was the one that told me that story, but they don't shy away from it. You know, like one of their most popular albums is called Potlatch, for instance. And Potlatch is a tradition that's shared by Coast Salish peoples and like lower Alaska Native peoples here in it's very close to home, like what this place that we call Seattle. But Alcatraz is it's a song that speaks to a specific historical moment, which is namely the occupation of Alcatraz that happened between 1969 and 1971. And so I thought it was really awesome that there was a band that was working back in the day that wanted to write a song about Alcatraz. Like it's very squarely about like the occupation. And since KEXP is now broadcasting to 92.7, the Bay Area Ohlone lands, Ramaytush Ohlone specifically is where there's the San Francisco Peninsula. And also where they have currently the sunrise ceremony, which will also be happening on Indigenous Peoples Day. I went to it in 2023 and it was a beautiful thing to witness that history being sort of repeated, you know, like a bunch of Native people just went up to Alcatraz. It's dark outside and you still see the quote unquote graffiti from the occupiers of Alcatraz there, like in 2023 back then. And I'm sure it's still there because it's a historical site, a site of historical significance. And so we had a drum group singing there, and we had Ramaytush Ohlone people to welcome everyone to their land. And we all just watched the sunrise, and we thought about, through ceremony, what had happened in the occupation and the development of the American Indian movement, and the figures there like Richard Oakes, who is Mohawk, and John Trudell, who, fun fact, John Trudell is one of the most famous Indian radio voices. And so I feel like even though his community's not really super close to mine, he's, as an Indian activist, like the spirit of Indian radio has in its genealogy John Trudell. And so, that's why Alcatraz, I felt like, would be a great Panic Redbone song for in our headphones on Indigenous Peoples Day.
Where many have spent their dying days, the Indian brings his peaceful ways because he cares, because he cares. Alcatraz, 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 Alcatraz. Few have seen your beauty like the Indian has.
All right, Kevin and Tory, thank you so much for being here today and sharing these songs. It's always a pleasure to talk with you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sioko, thank you for having us.
To many you've been a nightmare, to the Indian a dream come true, because he cares, because he cares. Alcatraz, 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 Alcatraz. Few have seen your beauty like the Indian hair.
That was Redbone with Alcatraz from their 1970 album Potlatch. Remember, you can listen to all of these songs in full by following along with our In Our Headphones playlists available on both Spotify and YouTube. You can find links to those playlists on our In Our Headphones podcast page on KEXP.org. And you can get many more song recommendations from Tory and Kevin on their weekly show, Sounds of Survivance. Go to kexp.org/indigenous for more. And if you need that spelled out, a link will be in our show notes. Now, as always, we're ending with one more new song for you from our music director, Chris Sanley. Chris, out of all the new music you've had in your headphones lately, what's standing out to you?
I'm really excited to bring in Live Humble by Jake Blount and Maoli Obomsawin. It just has such great movement and drive to it, and I really, really love how their voices interplay with one another. And the album itself is this really stunning collaborative album from Jake and Maoli, which is just this profound expression of Black and Indigenous futurism. And they really dug deep on this album to examine the landscape of climate change and colonialization here in the US. And they went back into the archives to just dig into different Black and Indigenous folk tunes to see what commonalities would be in between their different histories and experiences. And this song in particular draws upon 4 different songs to kind of all come together. So you've got music from the Georgia Sea Island Singers, a 17th century Jamaican song, a piece written by Thomas Kamuk, and then works from formerly enslaved people at the Hampton Institute in Virginia. So they were able to kind of take all these different stories and tunes, and they would try to listen to as many different versions of them as they could to kind of create a really comprehensive look at these histories and stories, and just really bring the kind of narratives of their ancestors into this music and into this work. And I'm just blown away by this album. It's incredible.
Our top story at this hour, tens of thousands of people are streaming out of Pakistan.
The album starts off with this sound bite of a news anchor that's kind of jumping around from different stories.
Have led many farmers to abandon their fields. Food shortages are now expected across the continent as the effects of climate change continue.
And goes into talking about these new people called symbionts that are gaining followers and kind of spreading this gospel of Earth First.
These so-called symbionts are spreading an Earth-first gospel.
And that immediately took me to Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, just thinking of this dystopian future and people kind of creating their own religion to really get through it and try to bring people together through that. And just with that Earth First mentality too, I think that's something that was a really common thread as they were digging into all of these past histories through Black and Indigenous folk tunes, just having Earth First, honoring this earth that we are here and have been destroying for centuries, and just how that's really kind of at the root of so many of our troubles today.
I can't wait to listen to more of this album, but for now, let's take a listen to a little more of the song Live Humble by Maoli Obomsawin and Jake Blount. This is off of their new record, Symbiont.
Light days glide sweetly over their heads, native innocence and love, softly and silently as the shades, their nightly moments so gently move. Humble, yes, humble.
You just heard some of the song Live Humble by Jake Blount and Molly Obomsawin from their collaborative record Symbiont on Smithsonian Folkways Recordings. And that was chosen by Chris, KEXP's music director. Before that, I was talking with Tory J and Kevin Sur, hosts of Sounds of Survivance. You can find all the music from this episode on our In Our Headphones playlists, available on both Spotify and YouTube. And if you want to support the artists making the music you love, we always encourage you to buy their music on Bandcamp or elsewhere. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please feel free to write a review or share it with a friend so they can discover new music this way too. If you have feedback, you can always reach us at headphones@kexp.org. KEXP is an independent nonprofit radio station, so this podcast, along with all of our programming, is made possible by the generous support of our listeners. If you'd like to contribute financially, you can make a donation of $6 a month at kexp.org/headphones. In Our Headphones is hosted and produced by Janice Headley and myself, Isabel Khalili. Audio was mixed by Emily Fox and mastered by William Myers. And our director of editorial is Larry Mizell Jr. Our theme song is How Ma by Chinese American Bear. Next week, we'll be sharing a different KEXP podcast on the In Our Headphones feed, but then we'll return the week after with a new episode to celebrate the Halloween spirit with a DJ who's very good at doing that. I'm Isabel Khalili. See you next time on In Our Headphones from listener-powered KEXP, where the music matters.